Regional Minister, my colleague, members of Parliament, my honorable big brother, the Honorable Municipal Assembly, Municipal Chief Executive, Honorable Rex Asanga, all government appointees, both former and present, former members of Parliament, the leadership of the great National Democratic Congress, and the leadership of all other parties that are represented here, permit me to address the rest of us as ladies and gentlemen. Today is a unique occasion that will never happen in my life. I have only one father, and he lives today. But he died a man that had been blessed by God and lived through many times. After 90 years, you may misunderstand my attitude and my demeanor because at 90, he had paid his due and we can only celebrate his legacy. So my brothers and sisters, today, I'm compelled to compress over 51 years of life with a great man of wisdom that we came to call Kwame Saw. Kwame Saw because our mothers don't call their husbands by their name. And often they use the names of their children to refer to their husbands. So it came to pass that my mother started calling my father Kwame's father. And that is how the whole village knows him as Kwame's father. And I'm sure Mark and Co were not jealous when he was referred to as Kwame's father, as if I didn't have the other sibling. So on the 2nd of April 2024, at about 9:30 a.m., your great, mighty, but humble soul departed to be with your father. Dark clouds engulfed us. The whispers were very loud, but your towering presence has since remained with us. You have and will be truly missed. It all started some 51 years ago when I was delivered to the safest pair of hands I have ever known in my life. Mr. and Mrs. Mary Adongo of blessed memory, my mother, and the great man of wisdom, discipline, and humility, Mr. John Atibila Adongo, alias Kwame Saw, as you were affectionately called. Though you were a poor couple, you were so happy to have me and always wanted the best for me, including refusing to send me to school as a child for fear that I will not be treated well with love and care. At the age of 7, you began to teach me the best known survival lessons you were taught by my grandfather, Amalga Atibila, of blessed memory. And this was hard work, perseverance, and humility. On weekends, my dad would travel with me on barefoot for over 10 kilometers to his maize and cassava farms in Obuasi. We would set up in the morning and visit our popular chop bar where we would eat our usual breakfast of konkonte with okro and buy some of that also for our lunch. But unfortunately at lunch we'll be competing with ants to eat that food because they would have smelled that there's food in the bush. Ladies and gentlemen, on that farm was where I began to learn the lessons of life. I enjoyed listening to the tales, which were laced with humor and often ended with admonitions. Several times, my father would take me through folklores of our tradition and would take his time to educate me about what makes you a man. And those were being trustworthy, being humble, and hardworking. You know, because everybody knew that I was going to make a living in football. As I progressed through my formative years, training at the Gophers Academy, serving the legendary Stanley Abura, who played for our Black Stars, when he joined from Asante Kotoko to play for Gophers. I would go in the morning to his hotel room and pick his boots and begin to learn my trade under such a wonderful footballer. And one day, my foundations were shaken when my father informed me that in 1986, he was proceeding on retirement. He then took me to my coach and informed my coach that he was leaving with me the next day to Bolga. My coach did everything he could to convince him because I had a bright future in football. But my father insisted that he could not report to the family at home about my whereabouts without him bringing me back home. So I came to Bolga, and when we arrived, it was obvious that football was not going to be part of my future. My dad sat me down and convinced me that I had to change course and focus on education. The end result is that the people of Bolga one day, without knowing me, entrusted me and made me to serve them in Parliament as a member of Parliament. That was a very important moment for my father because he loved his people so well that he felt it as a privilege that his son had been entrusted with the mandate to help our people find solutions to our common problems. But anytime there was turbulence in my career, particularly in my political career, the young man would give me a number of words of encouragement. Notably, he said, "Remember that you are the product of Tengankuri, and that my skin name as a member of Parliament is Tengankuri Bill Tingatato na Bolga." In other words, my great uncle, who was a Tindana, had cried to our fathers 20 years ago in my presence, and I requested that the people of Bolga be magnanimous enough to give him one of his sons to lead the people of Bolga. About 22 years later, I appeared a young man, innocent, but pursued the dream of my uncle, Tendango. But my father sold all, you sold all your animals. You sold all that you had to educate me. As a poor peasant farmer, when it was time for me to go back to school, I watched you. Go about, sell all your animals, your cows, your sheep, your cattle, even your foodstuffs and fowls, just to pay for my education and give me education. You are such a wonderful man. My dad was a very disciplined person. I recall when my master informed me of my A-level results, my father will be very, very happy. You died a very proud man and a happy father because you saw me not looking than the cows and the goats and the sheep that you sold to educate me, but a young, intelligent, very strong man that was willing to engage the people who had the privileges of life in national discourse and began to make a difference in our national life. In Parliament, my colleagues continued to support me without knowing the full story behind my arrival in Parliament. You will call me and say, you will call me and say, Kwame, as you still called me, I'm very proud of you, and people are equally very proud of you. The best is yet to come, but always remember to put your country and your best foot forward. I remember the day you called and handed me a black polythene bag full of money to go back to school for my last semester at the university. It broke your heart when I wept uncontrollably as I turned my back and I saw my father's cattle ranch was empty after years of selling them to educate me. I made a solemn promise that day to you that no matter what happens in life, I will always be back and remain your son into Nosobogo. And so I have remained to this day. Dad, you made a prophecy to me which I cannot say here, but I know one day it will come to pass. My dad told me when I asked him why he was so passionate about education, that the man who inspired him to take us serious in education was the former managing director of Ashanti Goldfields. When he was a young man working underground, Goldfields recruited Dr. Sam Jonah, then Mr. Sam Jonah, a very young man, straight from school, very green, to lead them. It was clear that they were practically better, but he had been trained to lead them. It was at that time he swore that his children will never go through that experience. And I know none of my brothers will ever go through that experience. Rest in peace, Adongo. Pass on.